Millions of people would love to have a seven-figure business and they just don't know how. Now, Uzi has tried every trick in the book so that you don't have to, so that you have a plan of action so that you can build your seven-figure business a little bit easier. And he has a lot of very varied experience that has led him to this point. So it's going to be a very entertaining episode about how to build a seven-figure business against all odds. So the first question is, what's the secret to your success and how did you manage to build a seven-figure business? Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
That's a fantastic question, Lily. Hello, folks. As far as the secret, it's very similar to a lot of entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs. I think the biggest thing that has helped me and drive me forward is both having a sustainable vision in addition to staying consistent with what's called micro tasks. Now, what I mean by that in terms of consistency is that the tasks themselves need to be divided into micro tasks, into short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. Now, short-term goals, I love personally because you can really divide that further and trickle it down into very small, specific tasks to reach those small goals. Because inevitably what happens is as you're attaining those small tasks, you're reaching those short-term goals, you then, after a certain time with that consistency and that drive and the vision, meet your medium-term goals. In which case, once you get to that, and that compounds over, let's say, months, years, and decades in this case, with the vision that we have, then you meet those goals that you set yourself up for, months before, years before, decades before. So that's really, the major secret as far as how I've gotten to a point where I am, and I'm sure a lot of other entrepreneurs in the past and currently striving to do just that. Now, in addition to that, these tasks, though, are not just your own as an entrepreneur. A huge part of that is delegating these tasks because, and that's, I guess, in a way, another secret of mine is just being efficient at leading the team and being efficient at delegating tasks that you may not think that your colleagues and your team members can do, but you'll be pleasantly surprised. So a combination of those two has really, really led me to a place where I am. And I'm hoping that with the kind of work ethics that I've come to and developed, and the vision as well as the consistency, I can continue to grow and hopefully help inspire a lot of folks in the process.
Thank you. Now, one thing I have to say I'm very impressed with is first, you were very punctual. Okay. Now, as the founder and CEO of Adventure Outdoors, you are a systematic leader with a diverse set of skills and experience in retail, sales, and entrepreneurship. And you are a multifaceted individual driven by the Kaizen philosophy. And tell us about the Kaizen philosophy and how can entrepreneurs leverage it in order to grow a seven-figure business?
Yeah, fantastic question. So the Kaizen, I'll preface this by saying that I don't have the best long-term memory. Now, but I do have a firm understanding of concepts and definitions. Now, from my understanding, the Kaizen philosophy is derived from the Japanese philosophy where somebody, an organization, a group, a community, a collective really striving to do better in relation to what they're already doing and what they have done. Now, that kind of philosophy for me and how I've implemented that into the business is being a very feedback-driven person and a feedback-driven company. primarily, of course, from our clients and customers and valued members, but also our colleagues and staff members who've been a pivotal part of our growth as the company is growing and will be growing. Shout out to all my team members. They're fantastic people. Really appreciate Janine, Ismail, Abhinav, and a host of other people that were also part of our business in the past. Now, with that being said, how I've implemented and really leveraged the Kaizen philosophy is constantly just doing several different things. One, analyzing data. As an entrepreneur, I can't stress enough being a very numbers driven person. It's one thing to have that vision. It's another to be fluid like water, kind of like Bruce Lee and how and how his philosophy was. So being very fluid and kind of moving with the flow, you can only achieve that by really focusing on data, especially in business. So that's one thing that we do on a constant basis. I have a team that only dedicates themselves to data. Another thing that I really have used, let's say the philosophy of Kaizen is, again, the feedback driven. So when clients tell us certain things that really impact our business in a very significant way, we don't wait. Right, we discuss it as a team and we implement that right away. Now, I know in bigger businesses, there's a corporate structure, and sometimes the voices of the staff get lost. Sometimes the voices of the clients get lost. But one thing I did when we looked into Adventure Outdoors and we launched it, I told myself that feedback will always get to me. That feedback will always get to my team, and we'll certainly do something about every feedback that we receive once we've analyzed the pros and the cons, of course. So really, as far as the Kaizen philosophy goes, we're constantly measuring our success. We're constantly pivoting the company in a certain direction that makes, of course, at the end of the day, more money. But at the same time, we're also listening to our clients, to each other, and making sure that growth continues to be exponential and fostered accordingly.
Thank you. Now, you have a very inspirational story. You started from a war-torn country, you smuggled your way to different parts of West Asia, and your family somehow made it to Canada. And I want to know your journey and what motivates you to be successful, so that other entrepreneurs who are going through immense struggles in terms of money, in terms of not having where to go, in terms of not knowing who to turn to when they're growing their business, to know that it's possible to go from nothing to 7 figures with your method.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I can sit here based on my parents telling me stories, give you the entire details of how we got to Canada. Quite frankly, I don't remember much of it because I was very, very young. I immigrated here when I was 12. And really the core memories that I have throughout that transition period was about 4 years prior to Canada. Now, I want to give all the credits to my parents for getting us this far. They've mentioned many stories of the hardships that they went through. One thing that even I can recall, I think I was about maybe 4 years old at that point. We were smuggling ourselves into India through Pakistan, and we were all on horses, and we were really high up on the mountains. And unfortunately, one of the carriages that we were on lost one of the wheels. So if you can imagine like a movie scene where the wheel falls off, there's a horse, there's 3 people on it, all 3 people fall. And, in those mountains, you may have seen it on Instagram, social media, movies, the distance between the mountain cliff to where, let's say the roadway is very, very small. So I think it was my sister, if I remember the story correctly, that was dangling off the side, and another one of my sisters held her hand up. I mean, thankfully we all made it across and inevitably came to Canada. Now, when we did come to Canada, I told myself I'm not going to take it for granted. Even at a young age, I found myself developing ethic, as far as my work ethic goes, looking at inspiration primarily from my siblings, Being the youngest in the house, I've had the fortune of just visualizing, observing, and learning the pros of all of my siblings in addition to my parents. Now, my father, my brothers, my sisters, they're all very, very, very hardworking. And that's really helped me transition from being a young professional all the way to where I am now. Let's say, for example, when we did immigrate, I used to, it's what's called, I guess, tracing in art. I kind of took that and implemented it into learning English. Now, how I did that is go through Scooby-Doo books. I'll just read. I'm sure you know Scooby-Doo, right? The cartoon and everything, worldwide sensation. I used to sit down and trace all of their words, all of their letters, and I had like a very tiny pocket dictionary. And of course, at that point, there wasn't, AI and cell phones, touchscreen, and it was just a pocket dictionary, which was very, very thick. Thankfully, it fit in my pockets, but that's a whole separate story. Now, I would sit there and the words that I didn't understand, I would scribble, and then I'd go back to my dictionary and find out what that word was. And I think that was really the first memory of me being a go-getter. Like, I want to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to find a way to do this. And I did. And thankfully, that's transitioned all the way into where I am now. I've been through probably about 40 plus, young professional careers throughout the time. But at the same time, the most recent job that I had, which was solar panel sales, I told myself, never again. I can't see myself ever contributing to another company as a staff member. I mean, consultant and everything, that's a whole different story. But as far as being a staff member and helping other businesses grow in that way, I told myself never again. And that was a huge part of that. Was I felt that my voice was lost, and that there was a lot of improvements that I kind of foresaw as a leader within that company that wasn't really implemented in a way that I thought was most efficient and cost effective. And so having all of the aggregate and the totality of all the experiences I gained, which again, I can sit here and talk about individually. For the sake of time, we'll skip to now. I've implemented all of that, a lot of my public speaking, a lot of my leadership skills that I've accumulated, a lot of my hardworking, technical skills, leveraging AI and technology to be able to, and we're still undergoing this transition of our business where we're utilizing tech and AI into really automating our business to the full extent. So again, it's hard for me to pinpoint all these different significant life events that have led me to where I am. But for the sake of time, really, that's the big summary from then to now.
Thank you. So tell us about what was your vision and how did you go from being in the ghettos of Canada to creating this business? Like, what was that journey of doing that? Was it that you had a very clear vision? Okay, I want to be a multimillionaire. Or was it that I want to help this many people? I don't know. What was that vision? And how did you manage to kind of go beyond the circumstances that you had in the ghetto to kind of see beyond that and see, this is possible for me and I'm going to try everything in order to make it happen? Is it that you kind of started stumbling onto like different jobs that some of them you disliked, some of them you liked and so on, and with time you kind of, the vision became clear with time? Or what would you say was your journey towards that?
Yeah, that's a very question. Even at a young age, I've always kind of had this vision of running my own company. And as I grew up, I had different career aspirations. I went to University of Toronto to work on my science knowledge and intellect because I wanted to become a doctor, and then subsequently open my own clinic and practice in it. That was really kind of my big vision that I had. That changed quite drastically. And the changes were for different reasons, but which I don't want to get into now, but it was a silver lining. And I really took advantage of that. Now, I do want to mention that I'm not originally from Vancouver, BC. I'm actually from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I recently moved here about 4 years ago. But growing up in the ghettos of Toronto, there's there's a little town, or not town, I should say, Scarborough, and that really gave me the drive to do better, because where I was living with the group of friends I was affiliated with growing up in high school and middle school, with with being so far away yet so close from my family members growing up, it didn't feel like I belonged there. And so when my partner and we visited British Columbia as just a vacation getaway, we really fell in love with this place. But when we were here, we noticed something that we wanted to kind of fix in a way together, but also solo as well for myself. We went. One of the things that we had planned here was to do stand-up paddleboarding, and so along our itinerary, we identified a business that we wanted to work with. So we reached out, we booked their paddleboards. We went to pick it up. Beautiful sunny day, and the lake that was located very close to their business and the pickup point. We're like, this is going to work out great. So we pick up our paddleboards, we drive over to the lake, we park the car, and in BC, let me tell you, it's tough to find parking at parks and local lakes. But despite that, we found parking, and we started pumping these paddleboards. And we quickly noticed a very, very loud sound coming from multiple spots of these paddleboards. And, her and I are trying to figure out, okay, did we cause this? Did we cause all of these holes? Which, we discovered pretty quickly. As we're inflating, it's deflating within 30 minutes. So why I'm mentioning that and how that relates to our business is I noticed a huge shortcoming, because soon after, I went and rented another kayak, and that kayak had dents in it. And so I started noticing this trend that all of these items that we're using for our trip are mostly defective. And so I was like, that is very, very interesting. So moving back with all of this knowledge and seeing the kind of demand that's there for outdoor equipment and outdoor experiences, I told myself, you know what? When and if I get into business, I not only want it to be in British Columbia, but at the same time, I want it to be something that has to do with outdoors, because my partner and I for ourselves, are also very passionate and very outdoorsy, and we like doing that kind of thing. So it resonated with me personally. It resonated with me professionally. And in a lot of ways, it resonated with me financially. And I told myself, you know what? Let's get into it. And so starting off, these issues that we identified, along with many other issues, we identified the kind of products that we wanted to provide. We identified the kind of services that we wanted to provide. But most importantly, we identified how to serve the community that we were, assimilating in, because there was a huge gap between, quality products, quality service, and, how do you merge the two for any incoming tourists in addition to locals? And thankfully, we've been able to do that quite successfully over the past almost 3 years now. And I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you. So tell us more about your business. What is it that you do exactly?
Yeah, great question. So with Adventure Outdoors, we currently provide, 3 different services. We provide outdoor experiences in the form of foraging workshops. If you wanted to learn more about plants and identify, their uses, their limitations, and a lot of different information covered throughout local plants of the Lower Mainland in British Columbia. That's one. Secondly, we rent out outdoor equipment. Now, again, that was very, very inspired with our personal experiences I mentioned earlier, how we've been able to combat the kinds of, defects that we identified, which in a way ruined our experience of, being tourists. Like, we had very limited time. We identified the type of activities we wanted to do, but not having the tools to do those activities, we told ourselves, you know what? The only way to combat that is provide brand new or near brand new products. And so that's what we do with our rental fleets. They're either all brand new or they're used only a very, very handful of times before we sell them as used items. Now, speaking of selling, that's our third offering from our business. We do have a largely automated e-commerce platform. So we do sell the same outdoor items that we rent, in addition to many, many others. Our store has almost 500 products in them now, and counting. We're hoping by the end of next year we have at least 1,000 items that we could be working with our local, in addition to regional and national partners. Really, and we're working on something big. I mean, I can't really discuss in details about it, but hopefully, with our new followers and hopefully fans, they can learn more about it, and we can continue growing together. That's for sure.
Thank you. So let's say that an entrepreneur is looking to build a 7-figure business, and this entrepreneur has absolutely nothing, no funding, no money, no idea how to do it. What would you recommend this person does? Let's say they have very difficult circumstances. Their family is not very supportive. Their wife, their partner is not supportive. They are, suffering from a certain illness. I don't know. Now we're talking about a very strange individual who seems to have all the problems. So let's
against all odds.
Yeah. So how can someone like that start to become successul and build a 7-figure business? What's your solution? What would you say is
every single point that you just made, I'm that, and, I mean, including medical, which I don't want to get into, but every single point you just made. I mean, that's a fantastic question, really, because ultimately everyone's going to find themselves asking, especially if they're in a position where the odds are stacked against them. How? Right? For me, the biggest thing, and Pablo Escobar took a similar approach, is learning the ropes, and typically learning the ropes in what you want to get into as far as business goes, from maybe other companies. So working with those companies, working with consultants that consult those businesses, talking to friends and family who are in the same kind of businesses, both in terms of business capacity, in addition to being one of the staff members of those businesses. Now, that's one, right? Like, getting that knowledge, getting that experience, getting that intellect is probably number one. For me, that's how I like to approach it. I gathered this kind of mentality from my years in sales, where product knowledge is like number one. Being able to answer the technical questions as they arise only comes through knowledge and experience, right? And of course, mitigating risks and financial loss also has to do with that. Now, then the question becomes, how do I get that experience and knowledge? And that's what you need to focus on. Like, there's fantastic resources for emerging entrepreneurs, also starting entrepreneurs, that the government provides, private institutions provide. For example, deferred payment loans, low interest loans. If, let's say, financials are the biggest barrier. As far as, let's say, having a disability, there's a lot of grants for that, right? Providing that financial assistance to an entrepreneur, I think, is the number one, or I should say number two, once you've really got that knowledge down. Now, again, those financial assistance, they're all over the place. You just have to know how to find them. And really, with today's technology, I wouldn't use that as an excuse personally. You can just go to ChatGPT and ask them, hey, what are some grants for entrepreneurs? And boom, they're going to give you a bunch of different, again, institutions, financial institutions that also offer through subsidies from the government, which would be the second thing, right? The third thing for me, and how do you do this, is just escaped my mind. Pardon me, my mind blanked out there for a second. But the third thing for me, which has been very fruitful, is just, again, remaining consistent with your drive and that vision that you have. Because, again, breaking those vision down into very, very small parts, as I discussed at the beginning, really, really helps you set yourself up for success in the long term. So I think those three things combined can really kickstart your entrepreneurial experience and journey to get you to that next stage, to get you to that next phase, of which then you can really focus on the other parts of the business, like leading the team and just growing from there, overall. So those would be the three things that I highly recommend: securing funding, having a firm plan of your business and a vision, in addition to really just learning the ropes before you begin.
Thank you. Now, one thing that I find probably the most important in building a business of any kind is to actually be healthy. The reason for that is that when you're actually incapable of working, you can be pretty useless very quickly, right? So, you can tell certain people, okay, do this, do that. But if you're limited in your capacity to do that because you're not thinking straight, because you're ill, then there's you're so limited in your actions, right? Sure, you can leverage a team, there's so many things you can do. But in my opinion, I think health is a really critical part of, building any business. So I wonder, are there any routines and habits that you recommend entrepreneurs do to make sure that they manage their health, whether they have a recurring illness that, bothers them for years, or whether they're not necessarily ill, but they don't want to be. And I think when you're trying to build a 7-figure business, you can get ill quite quickly because you're overwhelmed, you're doing everything, you're building, you're building a business, you're managing so many people let you down. You can get so frustrated, you can get angry because sometimes people don't pay you, sometimes people, take advantage. There's so much that can happen that can take a toll on your emotional or physical, mental health. So what do you suggest there?
Yeah, you're full of great questions, Lily. I gotta give it to you. That's a fantastic question. I would say, as far as at least speaking from my journey, there are illnesses that are not just physical, right? You also have mental barriers and physical or spiritual illnesses. I mean, there's different facets of being a person, and the illnesses can really deep root themselves within each of those facets. Now, for me personally, I think my biggest illnesses that, I've been battling with most of my life, but at the same time have really gotten to a point where I'm starting to manage it really well, is physical and mental. The mental part I do want to speak on because I know I'm not the only one. Many entrepreneurs, I'd say majority of entrepreneurs go through it, is being close to burnout, yet not being in there by choice, if that makes sense. So, having gone through a lot of stress, of course, over the first couple of years, 2.5 years, of many losses that you're discussing, like financial losses from clients not paying you, or credit card frauds that to this day are also being attempted, and many other stressors that it's really out of your hands. At the same time, it is in your hands. And I've grown to a place in my life where I understand when to separate the two, right? Let's say a year ago, if there was one thing I could tell myself is, hey, take it easy. And really, I wouldn't have made it to that point had I not learned what I did this year, which is really putting myself first above anything else. Because, having that concept of, putting your own mask first if something goes wrong on an airplane is really something that I had to remind myself. So I set myself goals at the beginning of the year. I said, I'm going through a fitness journey, which I still am. Having a routine within that fitness journey has really helped me. And I think that's one thing that I'd like to point out in relation to your question, is having firm routines, in addition to having tended to your mental health first. Now, that is also very, very crucial as well, because without having the drive and the motivation to get to that, let's say the fitness journey, and setting those routines is crucial. And being very close to the burnout in the past, I told myself, you know what, I really need to stop working when the clock hits that closing time. and I need to start working during the time that I'm meant to work. So as an entrepreneur, sometimes that's impossible, but I highly recommend and encourage everyone to put that above anything else, because really there's always going to be work, but there's never going to be a time that you get to spend on yourself if it's in the past. But you can only do that in the present and the future, and setting those healthy routines, both in terms of, whatever you're struggling with, find out what it is first, and then find out strategies on how to mitigate that and how to manage that better.
Yes, I fully agree. And I actually think that there are certain, certain illnesses that manifest based on what you're actually not doing. So for example,
yes,
you could experience, trouble with your eyes because there's something in your business you're not seeing, or in your life, right? Or there's you're struggling with your throat because you're struggling to express something you really want to express. So that's quite interesting how, certain illnesses can manifest in your life to make you aware of something you need to pay attention to. So that's quite an interesting thing to note. And I know you're not here to talk about health, but it was just an interesting thing. So I wonder, in terms of other entrepreneurs who want to create this kind of 7-figure business and maintain, like a good mental health and physical health and emotional health, what other activities and resources do you have for them? Is it that they should come to your business and experience some stuff there, or I don't know, what do you recommend they should be doing so that they can build a 7-figure business that they can continue to kind of build with time? Because what happens is that, when you're focusing so much on your business that you're forgetting about your health, sometimes it's like like life can stop you in a certain way. Through a problem with your eyes or with your throat or with your hands or with, it's like it can give you a sign that it's time for you to stop and to focus on something else.
Yeah, I'll be lying if I said I haven't had health complications throughout the entire time I've had this business. I think what I would suggest to people that are going through a lot of hardships and like experiencing roadblocks in their lives, because everybody goes through it, is don't doubt yourself, especially when everyone else tells you that maybe it's not a good idea. And that can create a seed of doubt that could potentially grow into a tree, which will prevent you from taking that first step to really like changing your life. Because yes, it'll be hard work. Yes, it might take a lot of time. But when you get to that point of eating the fruits of that tree, you realize that it may have been worth it. But the thing throughout that journey is focusing on yourself, making sure your mental health is in place, making sure your physical health is in place, making sure that a lot of these barriers and obstacles, as they come up, you not only think about it critically yourself, but bringing it up to your team, bringing it up to your friends and family, the people that you trust, and see what they have to say about it. And sometimes even clients. I was very fortunate throughout my journey to have a lot of clients who turned out to be business consultants, and they've really helped shape my business and myself as well through their feedback. But really, that would be the key thing that I would suggest.
Thank you. What's your intention? What's your why? What's your drive? What do you believe? And how does what you believe kind of drive your actions and your motivation?
I think setting up my future family to not have to worry about freedom. And to me, freedom means doing anything legal that you want, right? And to be able to do that in today's economy and world, what you need is money. And that's the unfortunate truth. Now, having the financial means to be able to provide that kind of freedom to, let's say, my kids, to my partner, and to my immediate and extended family, which are my siblings and my many nieces and nephews, that's what drives me every single day, is providing that kind of life that we've never had so far to each and every person that I love. And secondly, my second drive is just providing a product and service that everyone can benefit from, that everyone can save on, that is a necessity that they may have to use either in in the present or the future. So being able to help the community, being able to serve my friends and family, that's what keeps me driving. That's, I always tell when I'm around family and spending time with friends, I'm like, this is the stuff that I live for, right? Creating those memories and having the means to be able to form those memories is really what drives me. But, each person is different, and that would be mine.
Thank you. Tell us where people can reach you.
They can reach us through our website, Adventure Outdoors. If you're, reaching out to me personally, my email is uzi@adventure-outdoors.ca. I'm open to discussions. I review my email daily. I also have my LinkedIn account, Uzi Sultoni. Feel free to reach out, via message there as well. But if there's a way there, where there's a will, there's a way. Search up my name and I'm sure I'll pop up.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.